Have you ever felt like you're starting to lose yourself? If not, these disturbing movies will help you better understand what madness really is. Today on Top 2 Day, we're looking at 10 disturbing movies about trauma, madness, obsession, and the slow collapse of the human mind. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share your favorite disturbing movie about madness in the comments. Now, let's move on to number 10. Number 10, Pi, 1998.
1245. Restate my assumptions. 1. Mathematics is the language of nature.
Sometimes, when you start thinking about the size of the universe, the meaning of existence, or God, you feel a strange anxiety, a quiet reminder of how small and insignificant you are, like you're more likely to lose your mind than get any closer to the truth. This and much more is explored in Pi, the debut film of Darren Aronofsky, who later gave the world one of the most powerful films about drug addiction, Requiem for a Dream. Shot on a budget of just $60,000, Aronofsky captures the spirit of an era when computers gave people hope that we were close to solving the mysteries of the universe. The story follows a reclusive mathematician named Max. He believes numbers control everything, from nature to the stock market. He becomes obsessed with patterns and starts seeing them everywhere, in the way plants grow, in strategy games like Go. He's searching for what lies beneath it all, an ultimate pattern, a key to reality itself. One day, his computer produces something unexpected, a 216-digit number that seems to perfectly align with patterns in the stock market. His mentor, Sol, reveals that he once encountered the same number years ago, when his own computer failed under the strain of trying to process it. Being mentally unstable from the very beginning, the pursuit of such a massive goal starts to take a serious toll on Max. He begins to suffer from constant headaches and experiences hallucinations. Max also learns from an acquaintance, an Orthodox Jew, that they study the Torah as a kind of code, a hidden pattern, the key to which is believed to be a 216-digit number. He becomes obsessed with this code. But the more he tries to understand it and get closer, the more reality begins to slip away from him. But is it all real? Or is it just Max's mind playing games with him?
You want to find the number 216 in the world, you will be able to find it everywhere. 216 steps from your street corner to your front door. 216 seconds you spend riding on the elevator.
As a viewer, you're never entirely sure what's real. What's 100% real in this film is the outstanding soundtrack. Nearly every track feels exceptional and fits perfectly with the film's atmosphere. You can even hear Angel by Massive Attack, which adds to its intensity. Moreover, the cast in this film is solid. Sean Gillette delivers a masterful performance, and Mark Margolis, whom you might know as Hector Salamanca, only adds extra intensity to the story. An extremely underrated, or rather overlooked, film that raises thought-provoking questions, especially relevant in 2026 with the rapid development of AI. Do you really want to understand how everything works? Or is it better to simply experience existence? Number 9, Jacob's Ladder, 1990. The first time I watched Jacob's Ladder, I was still a teenager. It was on an old VHS tape. Rain was pouring outside, with thunder and lightning flashing through the windows. It made the whole experience even more unsettling. Years later, while playing Silent Hill on a PS1, there was a constant feeling that the atmosphere felt strangely familiar. Only then did I find out that Silent Hill creator Keiichiro Toyama was heavily inspired by Jacob's Ladder. Sudden unnatural movements, rusty and dirty environments, and a constant confusion between what is real and what is not. If you ever wanted to see something that feels like a true adaptation of that game, I'd actually recommend watching this movie instead of the disappointing remake. The film opens during the Vietnam War. A group of soldiers, including Jacob, is resting when things suddenly go wrong. A fight breaks out, but it doesn't feel like a normal battle. Everything quickly turns chaotic. The enemy seems to be everywhere at once, coming from all directions. Some soldiers start acting strangely, almost like they've lost control. After returning home, Jacob Singer begins noticing things that don't quite make sense. At first, it can be taken as trauma, a normal reaction to what he's been through. But the further it goes, the harder it is to explain it that way. Strange visions and unsettling occurrences begin to take hold of his life, some of which seem to hint at something that might have happened on the battlefield. Trying to understand what's happening, Jacob reconnects with people from his past, including other veterans. Some of them begin to describe similar experiences, which raises even more questions about what really happened during the war. At the same time, he's haunted by the memory of his deceased son, blurring the line between memory and reality. It's an excellent film that, despite being released in 1990, still delivers a powerful atmosphere, portrays madness in a very convincing way, and most importantly, keeps you fully engaged until the very end. Adrian Lyne created something truly memorable here, and the performance of Tim Robbins only adds to its cult status. If you want a movie with Silent Hill vibes, this one is the best. Number 8. The Lighthouse, 2019. The Lighthouse is the second feature of Robert Eggers after the amazing folk horror The Witch, 2015. This film has long gained cult status. Even if you haven't seen it, you've definitely heard about it somewhere. Dozens of breakdowns, thousands of reviews and praise. And, let's be honest, it absolutely deserves it. Shot in bleak black and white and lit almost entirely by candles and natural light, Eggers takes us back to the 1890s, to a tiny, isolated island where an old lighthouse stands. Inside the lighthouse, two men endure a harsh and demanding watch. Wake is an old sea dog, rough, drunk, and dominant. Willem Dafoe completely immersed himself in this role and did an incredible job. He specifically worked on his speech to make it sound like an authentic maritime dialect of the late 19th century, mixed with biblical tones and Old English slang, which makes his monologue sound at the same time comedic, strange, and almost mythological, as if he's not a man, but something from another era. Winslow, instead, is a quiet newcomer who just wants to survive this shift. If I remember correctly, this role finally helped Pattinson wash away his reputation after the Twilight Saga, proving to everyone who doubted him that he is a fully capable performer, able to handle very intense and psychologically demanding roles. Returning to the story, Wake constantly pressures, commands, and humiliates Winslow, forcing him to do dirty and meaningless work as if testing his limits. At the same time, he begins to get into his head, telling maritime legends, frightening him with stories about curses, sirens, and previous keepers who supposedly went mad and died on that island. As the film progresses, the line between reality and madness begins to collapse. Winslow starts seeing things that can't be explained, whether it's alcohol, isolation, or something much darker connected to the island and the lighthouse itself. The viewer, meanwhile, through its stunning visuals and perfectly structured narrative, slowly descends into madness as well, picking up on countless mythological references and ideas, and gradually uncovering the secrets of the island alongside the characters. Be ready for a surreal experience, and probably for watching breakdown videos afterwards. Number 7. Repulsion, 1965. Repulsion, 1965, directed by the great Roman Polanski, is one of the earliest and most precise portrayals of a collapsing mind in cinema, where the horror doesn't come from events, but from the inner state of a person. The film is old and slow, but that slowness is exactly what gives it its strange, hypnotic power. Polanski doesn't rush Carol's breakdown. He lets us sit inside it. We watch her world shrink little by little, and because of that, Repulsion becomes one of the most realistic and uncomfortable depictions of mental collapse in cinema. The main character is Carol, a young Belgian woman living in London with her sister Helen. Carol works in a beauty salon, and from the very beginning, she seems deeply detached from the world around her. She reacts badly to men, avoids physical contact, and often looks as if she is living in a constant state of anxiety. The film also strongly hints that Carol may have experienced some form of trauma or violence connected to men, because her fear of them feels too intense to be random. At the same time, we constantly see how vulgar and intrusive some of the men around her are, and this only further breaks her perception of the world. Carol's sister has a married lover named Michael, and Carol clearly feels disgusted by him. His presence in the apartment, his smell, his razor, even his personal belongings seem to disturb her. She is especially affected by Helen's sexual relationship with him. When Carol hears them at night, it doesn't feel like simple discomfort or embarrassment. It feels like physical disgust and fear. One day, Helen and Michael leave for a holiday, and Carol is forced to stay alone in the apartment. And this is where her real breakdown begins. The apartment slowly turns into a reflection of her mind. There is something deeply uncomfortable but also strangely moving in the way the film portrays mental collapse. Carol isn't presented as a monster at first. She feels fragile, distant, and disconnected from the world around her. And the more isolated she becomes, the more reality itself begins to deform around her. Polanski builds almost the entire film around the confined space of the apartment, turning it into a symbol of a trapped mind. Despite its age, the film still manages to be genuinely unsettling. The hallucinatory scenes are handled exceptionally well, creating a true nightmare-like feeling. The sound design plays a huge role here. Ticking clocks, ringing phones, and constant background noise never allow either the character or the viewer to relax. At the same time, some of the most disturbing moments are accompanied by near silence, which makes them feel even more uncomfortable and hard to watch. If you are not afraid of older cinema, and you are looking for something close to Possession, or more accurately, something that clearly influenced that legendary film long before it was made, then Repulsion is definitely for you. Number 6, In My Skin, 2002. In My Skin, directed by Marina Devon, explores self-destruction and the loss of connection with one's own body. The story follows Esther, a successful young woman working in Paris. One night, during a party, she accidentally injures her leg, but instead of reacting with fear, she becomes strangely fascinated by the wound. From that moment, curiosity slowly turns into obsession. Esther begins to examine her own skin, her wounds, her flesh, almost as if her body has become a separate object, something she can study, damage, and control. What makes the film so uncomfortable is that she still looks functional from the outside. She has a job, a boyfriend, a normal social life, but internally she is drifting further and further away from herself. There is a real psychological condition that can partly explain this kind of behavior, excoriation disorder, also known as dermatillomania. It belongs to a group of disorders called body-focused repetitive behaviors, where a person repeatedly picks, scratches, bites, or damages parts of their own body, often causing wounds, scars, bleeding, or infections. Overall, this is a very specific and unusual film. You could even call it a strange piece of Arthouse cinema, but it definitely has the power to disturb. For example, the restaurant scene creates a very strong sense of discomfort when you see what Esther is doing with the knife. The ending is also unsettling. At first, it may seem unclear, but then it becomes obvious that Esther has completely surrendered to her condition. And unlike many films about mental collapse, she doesn't really try to fight it. If anything, she almost fully embraces it. This film may shock you. It contains some pretty disturbing scenes that may scare you or simply push you away. Either way, actress and director Marina Devon did an excellent job creating a film that leaves an impression through its uncompromising approach to cinema. Number 5, Kotoko, 2011. Kotoko is a film by Shinya Tsukamoto, a director known for his raw, almost obsessive exploration of pain, the human body, and psychological collapse. If you've ever seen Tetsuo, the Iron Man, you already know how intense and invasive his style can be. But here, he turns that intensity inward. This is, without a doubt, his most personal and emotionally devastating work. The story follows Kotoko, a single mother suffering from a disturbing mental condition that makes her see people in double. One version is harmless, the other is violent, and she can't tell which one is real. Every encounter becomes a threat, every face a potential attack, and that uncertainty slowly poisons her reality. Because of this, she loses custody of her baby son as her condition becomes dangerous even to him. Later, she forms a strange and deeply unsettling relationship with a novelist who enters her life, not as a savior, but almost as another extension of her fractured mind. The sound design is sharp, aggressive, almost painful at times. And from the very beginning, it can genuinely scare you with how intrusive it feels. So, be prepared for that. The camera moves erratically, like it's reacting to her thoughts instead of documenting reality. You're not just watching her, you're trapped inside her perception. The scenes with the child are some of the most anxiety-inducing moments I've ever seen in movies. The film constantly keeps you on edge, with the feeling that something terrible is about to happen. People often label Kotoko as a drama, but honestly, this is psychological horror in its purest form. If you've seen this film, write your impressions of it in the comments. Number 4, Clean Shaven, 1993. Clean Shaven is easily one of the most disturbing and realistic portrayals of schizophrenia ever put on screen. The film follows Peter Winter, a man struggling with severe mental illness as he searches for his young daughter. But very quickly, it becomes clear that this isn't really a story about the search. It's a story about being trapped inside his mind. From the very first minutes, the film throws you directly into Peter's perception. He hears voices, distorted sounds, and lives with paranoia, the constant feeling that someone is watching him or trying to hurt him. Everything is designed to make reality feel unstable and hostile. And Peter Green's performance is absolutely devastating here. He doesn't play Peter like a crazy person from the outside. He makes you feel the fear, confusion, and pain of someone who can no longer trust his own senses. Everyday reality feels like an attack on him. Sounds, textures, light, even his own thoughts. There's a particularly brutal moment involving his fingernail that many viewers won't even be able to look at. But it isn't there just for shock. It shows how physical pain can become a desperate attempt to escape something even worse inside. Director Lodge Kerrigan does something very rare here. He doesn't turn Peter into a simple threat or a horror movie monster. Instead, he lets us experience his suffering from within. The film is fragmented, uncomfortable, and sometimes almost unbearable, but that's exactly the point. It doesn't explain schizophrenia from a safe distance. It puts you inside a mind that is breaking apart. And despite everything, Peter still feels painfully human, especially in his desire to reconnect with his daughter. Maybe the hardest part of the film is realizing how the world sees people like him. He is exactly the kind of person most people would avoid on the street, but the film makes you understand why he is the one who fears everyone else even more. Number 3. I Stand Alone, 1998. I Stand Alone, also known as Seul contre tout, is the feature-length debut of Gaspar Noé. After several short films and almost 10 years of trying to make his first full-length movie, he finally got the chance. And already here, it was obvious that Noé had no interest in making anything safe or comfortable. The film opens with a series of photographs showing the depressing life of an unnamed butcher. He is a man whose life has completely fallen apart. No stable work, no money, no healthy relationships, and no real place in the world. His downfall becomes even worse when his daughter is sent to an institution, and he ends up in prison after attacking a man he believes assaulted her. After his release, he tries to hold on to some kind of normal life. He enters a relationship and attempts to start over, but very quickly it becomes clear that he is trapped in a reality he despises. After a deeply disturbing scene involving his pregnant partner, without spoiling too much, he returns to Paris, hoping for a new beginning, but there is nothing waiting for him there. He faced rejection, loneliness, poverty, and constant frustration slowly turn into a stream of aggression and hatred. The butcher was never exactly a good man, but as the film goes on, he becomes something even more frightening, a man completely consumed by his own bitterness. And this is where the film becomes so unpleasant. Like in many of Noé's later works, everything is filtered through an internal monologue. We are not just watching this man from the outside. We are locked inside the mind of a deeply hateful, unstable, and morally repulsive person. We hear his thoughts constantly, and with every minute they become more disgusting, paranoid, and disturbing. The film touches on extremely heavy themes, including violence and incestuous impulses toward his daughter, which slowly rise to the surface. It may not look like a film about madness in the classic sense. There are no hallucinations or obvious supernatural elements, but if you actually listen to his thoughts, it becomes clear that we are watching a man whose perception of the world is already completely distorted. Number 2. Julien Donkey-Boy, 1999. We've already talked about Gummo before on this channel, and if you've seen that film, or really anything else by Harmony Korine, you probably already understand what kind of cinema we're dealing with here. His films often feel strange, dirty, chaotic, and almost impossible to explain in a normal way. They don't follow traditional logic. They feel more like fragments of damaged lives. And Julien Donkey-Boy may be one of his most uncomfortable works. The film follows Julien, a young man living with schizophrenia, played by Ewan Bremner. He lives with his deeply dysfunctional family, his pregnant sister, his younger brother, his grandmother, and his abusive father, played by Werner Herzog. The The same Herzog you may know from documentaries like Grizzly Man or from Aguirre, The Wrath of God, and his legendary conflict with Klaus Kinski during its making. Returning to the plot, early on, Julien meets a young boy playing with turtles in a New York City park. From the very first scene, we can already see how unstable Julien is. After the boy refuses to give him one of the turtles, Julien kills him. It is a shocking opening, but it also immediately shows that this film will not give us a safe or comfortable distance from his illness. Back at home, we are introduced to the rest of the family I mentioned earlier, and each of them feels broken in their own way. The house doesn't feel like a place of support or safety. It feels like another part of Julien's illness, full of humiliation, cruelty, confusion, and emotional violence. What makes Julien Donkey-Boy so disturbing is not only Julien's mental illness, but the environment around him. Werner Herzog's character, especially, is terrifying in a very grounded way. His presence alone makes the house feel poisoned. He spends most of his time drinking, telling strange stories about history and war, and inflicting psychological and physical abuse on the children around him. You feel trapped inside this madness with the family, forced to witness their most uncomfortable and intimate moments up close. The film was made under the rules of the Dogma 95 movement, which means it was shot in a deliberately rough, stripped-down style. It captures madness not as something cinematic or stylish, but as something fragmented, ugly, intimate, and impossible to escape. Number 1. Titicut Follies, 1967. Titicut Follies is a controversial 1967 documentary directed by Frederick Wiseman. The film takes us inside Bridgewater State Hospital in Massachusetts, a prison hospital for mentally ill inmates. It has no traditional narrative, no voiceover, and no music telling you what to feel. It shows the daily life of the institution, the patients, the doctors, the guards, and the strange, often disturbing conversations happening inside those walls. Within the documentary, we see patients being mistreated, mocked, and intimidated whenever they show any emotional reaction. One clear example is Jim, a patient taken naked from his cell to be shaved. Instead of simply finishing the shave, the guards keep pressing him about whether he will clean his room afterward. Jim grows visibly upset, clenches his teeth, and shouts, but they continue, knowing the question only agitates him more. When he is brought back, the cruelty of the scene becomes obvious. His cell is empty. There is no real mess anywhere. So all this pressure was never really about cleaning. It was about provoking him and watching him react. Another difficult-to-watch sequence shows a patient who refuses to eat the food he has been given. The doctor force-feeds him using a tube and a funnel, pushing the tube through the patient's nose. While feeding him, the doctor smokes, and cigarette ash falls into the slop being fed to the patient. This sequence is intercut with images of the same patient being prepared for his funeral, making it clear that he dies soon after the feeding process was filmed. Even the title becomes disturbing once you understand it. Titicut Follies comes from a talent show performed inside the institution. The film was banned from general public release for decades. Officially, the reason was the privacy and dignity of the patients, but that explanation feels bitter, because the film itself shows that their dignity had already been destroyed long before the camera arrived. Titicut Follies is an extremely hard film to watch. After watching it, you may feel that the doctors inside these walls were no less insane, and maybe even more insane, than the patients themselves. What makes it even more disturbing is that this place doesn't really feel like a hospital. At least from what the film shows, nobody seems to be healing, rehabilitating, or helping these people. It feels much closer to punishment. And the film doesn't clearly explain how many of the patients were actual criminals or how many were simply trapped there because society had nowhere else to put them. If you have seen this film, definitely let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So that's it for today. I want to apologize if your favorite film didn't make the list. I know there are many other fascinating and terrifying films about madness. Black Swan, Mulholland Drive, The Machinist, which I personally like a lot, and even the famous 12 Monkeys. There are many more, and I am curious. What is your favorite among all of them? Write your thoughts in the comments. I'm always looking for more disturbing cinema. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and spend the rest of your day with purpose. Or at least, with pleasure. See you in the next one.